Good morning, and welcome into the Lifeline Morning Show. I'm Steven. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. You know I love getting your day started off on the right foot. And to help with that, I use an inspiring quote. It kind of helps ground us a little bit. It helps us think about, what we can do a little bit differently throughout the day. And this one right here, it's all about perspective. And it's from Abraham Lincoln. He said, "We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." I love that. It turns the whole idea on its head. Everybody knows that a rose is beautiful, so fragrant, so just, magnificent. You see all these layers of petals and how they're arranged. It's really a masterpiece. But when it comes down to it, to get to that beauty, you have to get past the sticky thorns. Sometimes those things are really long. And when you're trying to get at that rose, you got to be careful the way that you approach it. Because if you're not careful, it's going to prick you. You're going to bleed. It's going to hurt. But the beauty is worth it. Wow. I bet there are a few things in your life like that right now. It's like you see the best parts of it, but there are some other parts that aren't quite as desirable. You know what I mean? But it's worth it to get to the good stuff. Oh, I love that. Wow. And maybe you're looking at something right now. It's like, I see the good, but I just don't think it's worth it. There's too much bad stuff to get to that point. That's where I want you to use this quote from Abraham Lincoln. Instead of looking at that thorn bush having a rose, look at that rose bush having some thorns. It's just something about it. It'll get you. It'll put you in the right frame of mind. So you can overcome the thorns because of the good stuff that's waiting on you. And guess what? You don't have to do it alone. We're in this thing together, and we're doing life together. And besides that, you always have God with you. He says he'll never leave you or forsake you. So take heart in that. Take courage. You're going to make it because you're not alone. And that should help you get through this day. Hey, I've got some great music and a lot more great things to talk about between now and 10 o'clock. So I hope you'll stick around. You ever thought about what elements we really need to survive? Yeah, I came across this graphic and I thought this is too good not to share. Science says we need at least 4 basic elements to survive. They are number 1, water, number 2, air, number 3, food, and number 4, light. And look what the Bible tells us about Jesus. 1, I'm the living water. 2, I am the breath of life. 3, I am the bread of life. And 4, I'm the light of the world. Whoa, think about that for a second. Science was right. We need Jesus to live. So many times science tries to disprove religion or spirituality, but really in so many ways it just confirms the whole thing. I know people get bent out of shape over the whole Big Bang theory, but I like to think of it in this way. God spoke it and bang, there it was, So, hey, I just wanted to let you know that he covers all the bases right there in that Bible. He promises us all kinds of great things, and he tells us that he loves us. That's a pretty big deal. The creator of the universe knows you by name. How many hairs are on your head? How many tears you've cried. He knows the desires of your heart, and he knows what's happening in your life. Yet he still wants that relationship, that conversation with us, with you. So, when's the last time that you spoke with him? Some people think, well, you have to get down on your knees and bow your head and close your eyes. No, you don't have to do that. If you're in the car right now, you can talk to him just like you're talking to a friend. Yep, keep your eyes open so you can watch what you're doing, but you can talk with him. Just remember, add that in Jesus' name at the end of that prayer. That helps that conversation reach him. All right, sound good? I want to give a big shout out to Joel Modis hanging out with us down in Palm Coast, Florida, and our friends in Helsinki, Finland. Thanks for being here.
Rise and shine. If you're out here getting it early in the morning like us, trying to provide for the family and stay positive, shout out to you. Hope y'all have a good day. Live in the moment, one day at a time. Let's get this thing.
I love hearing about what God is doing in your life. That's why I'm always checking my emails. I'm checking my voicemails. I'm seeing did somebody send me a testimony? Did somebody tell me what God has been doing in their life? Well, I came across Hope Tatum, and she's got a little something she wants to share with all of us. Take a listen to this.
Just wait. As we're walking into 2024, I was really praying to the Lord this morning, like, okay, God, you know where my heart's at. You know what I'm believing you for. I know your promises that you've told me. And I know what you're telling me to change in 2024. And I said, okay, Lord, I really want a scripture or a passage or a book in the Bible to just be my foundation for this year. That I could just continue to go back to when my faith starts to waver or when I start to doubt you. Like, I could look at this scripture and remember what you've spoken to me. So to the person who's waiting for their promise that the Lord has spoken to them to come to pass, to the person who's waiting for their breakthrough, I want to share what the Lord showed me. So I opened up my Bible and he brought me to Hebrews 6. And you know, when you just are reading and he completely highlights something for you, it's like he's actually speaking directly to you. Well, that's what happened to me. Actually, I read the title of a passage and it was the certainty of God's promise. And I was like, okay, I think this is what he has for me. The address is Hebrews 6, 13 through 20. When God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. People swear by someone greater than themselves, and the oath confirms what is said and puts an end to all argument. Because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised, he confirmed it with an oath. God did this so that by two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain where our forerunner Jesus has entered on our behalf. So good. This passage literally says we have this hope as an anchor for our soul, firm and secure, okay? So we all know our patience will run out. We all know we will start to doubt God. We know that we will question him. But the thing is, at the very bottom of our heart, we have the anchor of the hope in Jesus, that he has given us so that we can walk out firmly and securely even when we haven't seen our promise come to pass yet. And so I pray that you could be able to walk into 2024 firmly and securely in the hope, the anchor that you have in Jesus, the security that you have in Jesus. And really, that the Lord never lies. So when he gave you that promise, when he gave you that word, when you know his word and you know that he never rejects a prayer from you, you know that he hears your prayer, he knows that that he will give you the desires of your heart if you delight in him, then you will be able to walk out in 2024 firmly and securely because you know that he never lies and that you will see his promise come to pass. So keep praying, keep waiting, and keep living patiently.
Life can be a lot of fun, right? And then we've got responsibilities. We've got things that we've got to take care of to make sure that we can keep living and having a fun life. But sometimes those responsibilities, they kind of drag us down a little bit. I came across this guy, 98 years old, who still enjoys going to work every morning. I know some of you out there are like, no, I'm getting close to retirement. I'm looking forward to not having to go to work. I want to enjoy the rest of my life. But what if I told you you could still enjoy your life even though you work? And for those of you who are getting ready to go to school right now, thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, wow, it would really make a difference if you enjoyed what you did so much that you'd want to just keep doing it until you went to meet Jesus, no matter how old you got. Well, hear from this inspiration. Yeah, Dick Van Dyke, coming up here on the show. Stick around.
It's such a blessing to find a way of making a living that you love, that you do for nothing. I feel so sorry for people who hate their jobs. I look forward to going to work every morning.
Yeah, every morning, even at 98 years old. That's Dick Van Dyke. You probably remember him from, I don't know, maybe a Disney movie called Mary Poppins, or maybe another one of those movies. This is from that.
You pretty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, we love you. And
Yeah, this guy always dancing, always singing, always looks like he's having a good time. You know why? Because he truly is. He loves what he does. You know, he actually had the chance to become James Bond. But he loves making movies that are family friendly. Plus, he wasn't very impressed with his own British accent, so he passed up that opportunity. But we know Dick Van Dyke for so many reasons. And this guy really is still an inspiration all these years later at 98 years old. In fact, he's got a message or two to share with all of us this morning. See what you think about this.
I'm on my third generation. I'm getting letters from little kids. And that is what I love, that they watch the movies over and over. No, I'm getting so much more mail today than I did during the heyday of my career. People are more afraid of aging than they are death these days. And we need to tell them there's a lot of good living to do. When you find the joy of living is loving and giving, you'll be there when the winning dice are tossed. A smile is just a frown that's turned upside down. So smile in that frown, defrost. And don't forget to keep your fingers crossed. Wow.
How cool is that? Wow, Dick Van Dyke still goes to the gym 3 times a week. He still sings with his group, the Fantastics. And such an inspiration. And I wanted to share that with everybody because I know we've got a lot of parents in the car right now dropping your kids off at school. And you're looking forward to that time when you can retire and say, hey, I don't have to work anymore. I can finally enjoy my life. Well, I want to challenge that perspective. I want to ask you, could it be possible for you to still enjoy your life and work at the same time? Would it be possible to find some kind of value that you really enjoy your work and enjoy the impact that it has on other people? Yeah, I know it's possible. Plus, for all of you kids about to head into school, maybe you're still trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. Well, let me just say, the sky isn't even the limit for you, but I hope that you will pick something that brings you joy. And you know that you're making a difference to the people around you, to yourself, and hey, that you are following that path that God's laid out for you. So, hey, find something that you enjoy doing. Lots of times God kind of fine-tunes our hearts for the things that are really going to bring value to our lives. It's the things that we're passionate about. And I love the way He does that, because if we are passionate about what we do, we're going to enjoy doing it every day. So, find that thing that brings you joy. Talk with God about that career path and watch what He does in your life. I can't wait to see what happens. Here's Kane with Any More, right here on the Lifeline Morning Show on your 88.5 JFM, making your day better. If you're missing the car line competition, don't worry, we'll start it up soon. Let's go back a few years, shall we? Do you remember where this music is from? Is it ringing a bell yet? Yeah, it's monotonous. In fact, that's on YouTube where I found the theme song, and it runs for 10 hours. I'm not going to subject you to any more of that, but I can tell you that that particular game came out 34 years ago. Hard to believe it was that long ago. But there have been a lot of people who've tried to beat Tetris. And everybody thought, this thing is unbeatable. Nobody is ever going to reach the end. But what if I told you that it was finally beaten? And then it wasn't by somebody who was playing the game way back then. It didn't take him 34 years to beat it. No, this kid just happens to be 13 years old. Yes, this kid just beat it. Completely astounded. His score, 6,850,560. That's nuts. 13 years old, Willis Gibson, better known as Blue Scooty. He beat that thing. It was about 39 minutes into that game, into a Tetris competition, rotating blocks at lightning speed, and he achieved true kill screen. signaling the game couldn't keep up, and it actually crashed. In other words, Gibson did the impossible. The 34-year-old game was finally beat by a teen. You know, I've really enjoyed video games here lately. We got my daughter Mario Kart 8 for her Switch, and I play it just about every day. I think I enjoy it a little more than she does. But I enjoy even getting on the Switch and getting back on those older games. They have the original, like Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong and all the older games there on the Switch now. So you can sit there and play. Actually, I beat Super Mario Brothers 3 for the first time when I was 40 years old. I remember playing it back when I got my Nintendo, when I was probably about 8 years old, 9 years old, right around there. Yeah, I never really beat the games back then. I'd play them, I'd get frustrated, and then I'd just move on to the next one. Because back then, you couldn't just save where you left off and come back to it. You had to have cheat codes to get to different places. I felt like I was cheating if I did that, so I didn't do it very often. But there's one code I remember to this day. At 41 years old, it was for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it was BA, BA, up, down, BA, left, right, BA, start. How do those things stick with you? They just do. So, hey, you know what? I turned out okay, and I played a lot of video games. Everybody told me, Steven, it's going to melt your brain. But no, I'm pretty smart, I think. I hope. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Tetris has finally been beat. And if you haven't revisited any of those video games from your childhood, I want you to take the opportunity and do it. Maybe it's been a while since you've been to an arcade. May I suggest for you B&B Video Games. They've got an 80s style arcade in the back, video game retail store in the front. They're in Albertville beside the Pizza Hut. Place is awesome. And Rick, the owner, just an amazing guy. I just had to shout him out this morning. Thanks for hanging out with me here on the Lifeline Morning Show.
If I got Jesus, I got it all.
I hope you've resolved that in your heart. If you've got Jesus, you've got it all. Well, let's be honest. Sometimes this life is kind of scary, and we're trying to parent our kids and help them to realize that, hey, if you got Jesus, you got it all too. But it takes a little time. I wonder if maybe you have an anxious kid. One that kind of gets scared, maybe a little too sensitive. Yeah? If so, I want you to stick around. I've got a very special story to share with you coming up, and I think it's really going to help you with your anxious kid. I came across Bree Goen. She's an amazing author, and she's sharing a story about her daughter, her 4-year-old. And you see, her 4-year-old is a very anxious little girl, very worried, very scared easily, very sensitive. And Bree's trying to wrap her head around what she might have done to make her daughter feel that way. But she's got some pretty cool insight into why she thinks she is that way and how things are going. And I think it might bring you a little comfort, Mom and Dad, if you have a really anxious kid. I'll share it next. I wonder if you have a really anxious child. You know, that can be tough as a parent, trying to instill a little bit of confidence in your kids when they just seem to be afraid of everything. I came across Bree Goen, and she is an amazing author. She has a blog. She shares a lot about her life and what she sees and how she sees God working in the middle of it. And I thought, whoa, this is such a good article. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not going to read it straight off, but let me kind of summarize for you the beginning of this. Her 4-year-old is very anxious, very sensitive. And Bree's trying to figure out why that is. You see, recently they ended up going to their church. They had a get-together of all of the kids and parents involved in the homeschooling program they've been a part of. But as soon as they rolled up in the parking lot, this 4-year-old is like, I don't like this. I don't feel safe here. And Bree had to tell her, don't worry, we're not staying here. We're going over there. She pointed over to the brightly lit church. And then this little girl asked, well, is it going to be on the bottom floor or do we have to take an elevator? And Mom said, well, it's on the top floor, but don't worry, we'll take the stairs, to kind of ease her fears a little bit. Now, Bree has noticed that her 4-year-old is very anxious in most circumstances. She might cry at something as easy as a shoe not going on right. She's just that way. And Bree's beat herself up trying to figure out, how did I do this? What did I do that caused her to be this way? But the more that she's looked at it, the more she realizes something that just blew me away. I didn't think about this, and I want to pass it along to you. Now, these are the words of Bree Goen. She says, "My anxious child is special. Long ago, I realized my baby was special, more so than just the typical my kid is awesome kind of thing. I think God made her a particular way because He has special plans for her life. Perhaps He made her sensitive so she could better relate to the tender and hurting parts of others. Sometimes I see her thoughtfully watching people, and I'm certain this is true." When the idea of this post was floating around in my head, I paused mid-thought at the sound of my girl across the house. I could hear the water running in the bathroom, and I could hear her tiny musical voice carry through the hall. She was talking to one of her toys again, I assumed, seeing she'd always been an imaginative, independent player. I walked up to the bathroom and heard her speaking from inside. "I don't want anything for Christmas, God, but all the people to be happy. I love you, God, more than money or anything you can buy." I walked back into the living room without interrupting her little conversation, smiling as I sat down on the couch. I prayed for that child a lot. That is certainly true. A lot of the time, I simply prayed for my own sanity dealing with it all. But mostly, I prayed to be just the mother she needed. I figured God gave her specifically to me for a reason, and despite the challenges, I certainly didn't want to mess it up. So I frequently prayed for wisdom, that God would show me exactly the best way to parent this special little star. Sometimes, she freaked out big over little things, but other times, she loved the little things bigger than I had ever seen. And while I might experience some silent judgment over even unloving advice from some for this post, I wrote it in a sharing mode with the hope that my situation might make someone else with an anxious child feel less alone. I hope that you too can see the special calling the Lord has for your child. May we all raise them to the best of our abilities and cling to His strength for the rest. Wow. So Mom, Dad, got an anxious kid? Guess what? You're not alone. Maybe, just maybe, God is growing them. God is developing them in such a way that they will be more sensitive to the hurting. Maybe it's just a part of His plan for their life. But you don't need to beat yourself up over them being so sensitive or having so much anxiety. Keep telling your kid that they don't have to be afraid of anything because, hey, they've got Jesus. Jesus is always with them. It's part of the glorious thing of parenting is that we get to pass this faith on to them and teach them about our Heavenly Father. But if it doesn't seem like it's taking too well, don't worry. Keep up the good work. Keep your kid in prayer. And know that God has them in your life for a reason. I love the way she pointed that out. Again, that's Bree Goen. Tell you what, I'm going to make it real easy for you to find that article. I'm going to go put it on our 88.5 JFM Come Together Facebook group so you can check it out for yourself, okay? All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. I love good news follow-ups. How about you? If you remember a while ago, I told you about a lady here in Alabama who went to the Goodwill with her friend. They were looking for some picture frames. And she just happened upon this $6,200 dress that she didn't pay anywhere near that much for. No. It was quite a steal. Then, you see, she snatched it up because she's not married yet. She wants to be super prepared for her big day, and besides that, it fit so well. And at the time of her big find, she had a boyfriend, and I guess he had been thinking about the future because when the news of the big find got to him, he had evidently, well, already had plans, a ring, and an idea. You see, over the Christmas break, they took a trip across the pond over to England, and right in front of Buckingham Palace, Nick got down on one knee and popped the big question to Emily, and Emily said, yes, making Nick one happy camper. Wow, I love that. That big find at the Goodwill. You never know what you're gonna find at the thrift store. It might be a thrift store treasure. Oh, by the way, it was just $25 for that $6,200 dress. Yeah. So she's a little extra prepared for that big day. And guess what? They're going to get married in June of 2025. So here's to the happy couple. So glad that they are looking forward to the future. I hope it is happily ever after. When's the last time you did something that really made you happy, that brought you joy? I want you to think about that. If it's been a while, I got a little encouragement, a little advice coming your way. Stick around.
You need to hear this. Stop and listen. What makes you happy? What brings you joy? Do you know? Okay, figure those things out first. What makes you happy? What brings you joy? What lights you up? What ignites you? What makes you say at the end of the day, that was a good day, and that was fun, and I should do more of that? Now the trick is this. Make the time for those things. Actually schedule them in. Once you get to that scheduled time, take that time. You've made the time, you've scheduled it, now take that time. Honor your time. Master the ability to be present in other people's lives, to be present in the lives of your family and your friends, and to be connected and to find joy there. But don't be so present everywhere else that you become absent for yourself. Make sure that you are standing grounded in your own life, doing the things you love to.
Well, hello, Atlanta, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky. Hello, Mountain Borough and Boaz and Arab and Gunnersville and Coleman and Grant and Skyline. And hello, Joel Modis in Palm Coast, Florida. Hello, friends over in Helsinki, Finland. I see you all listening to us on the stream. Thank you for making us part of your day. And for everybody else listening to us on the FM broadcast here locally, thank you for being here. And for those of you listening over on Spotify, on the podcast, thank you as well. You know what? Y'all are the reason why we're here in the first place. 28 years and still going strong, sharing some really good news. And you're part of that story. That's a pretty big deal. Thank you for being here. I came across this guy a while back over on the socials. His name is Brian Trent. He lives in Hampton, South Carolina, and he pastors the Lighthouse Church there. He and his family post amazing content. They go by Trent Tribe, and I found him over on TikTok. And I've never really heard a whole lot of his story. I've heard a lot of his messages and a lot of the ways that he kind of takes his everyday life and applies scripture to it and kind of learns and kind of lets us all in on it at the same time. I love that. But I wonder, would you like to hear a little bit about his story? Here's Brian.
You cannot experience the fruits of a new season while living in the old season. Now, here we are at the beginning of a new year, and I wanted to share something with you that might help you. Something that might be an encouragement to you, especially when it comes to knowing and trusting that God will direct your steps. But the encouragement comes through my own family story and how we found ourselves moving from Virginia to South Carolina. And I promise that if you stick around for a few minutes, our story might just help you. Now, right at this time, 14 years ago, my wife Amanda and I, and our 4 kids at the time, were living in Virginia. We had felt led by God to put our house on the market, and we did just that the first week of July 2009. Now, the housing market was not good at all at the time, but we still had lots of people looking at our house each week. But not one single offer had come in over the course of many, many months. Now, in August of 2009, though, we had submitted a resume to this church, as well as other churches and ministries. And the only response we got from this church that we now pastor, called Lighthouse Church, was that they had gotten over 250 resumes and they would let the final candidates know as soon as they possibly could. So fast forward to December, we had pretty much just put this one out of our mind, but get this phone call from a guy that had this heavy Swedish accent inviting me to come to South Carolina. Not exactly what I was expecting on the other end of a phone call from South Carolina, but nonetheless, he said they wanted to interview me and have me come and do a tryout sermon. So on December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2009, we loaded up our family and drove down to Hampton, South Carolina. Listen, we had so many battles going on, like, what do we do about our house? We felt God wanted us to put it on the market because we felt God calling us somewhere, but it had been almost 6 months since we listed, and the contract was running out in just a few days. Do we renew it, or do we just chalk it up for maybe we got it wrong, and we just stay where we were? On the way down to South Carolina to do our tryout sermon, we got a phone call from our realtor saying someone's coming to look at your house this evening on New Year's Eve evening. Who does that? Well, we told her we were on our way to South Carolina, and she said, no worries, I've got it. We spent the weekend with the church doing all-day interviews, looking at the area, and of course, doing the tryout sermon, which was about momentum, by the way. Things went okay, I guess, right? But they said, we'll be making a decision within the next month or so we'll be in touch the next month or so. Now, we left that Sunday evening to head back to Virginia, and on our way back home, our realtor calls and says, the folks that looked at your house on New Year's Eve made you an offer, and it was your asking price. So hurry back so we can sign off on this. Well, that's exciting. But then again, it's not exciting. See, now we have a home that's basically sold, but we don't know where we're going. The church said it will be a month or more, and we certainly aren't guaranteed it's us because there's 250 other people. We had other churches that had talked to us. Nothing was coming from any of those as well. We felt so frustrated because we felt like God had led us to step out in faith, and now that we had, God had just taken off and disappeared. Now, obviously that isn't true, but when you're in the midst of it, when you're in the moment, it can feel like you're all alone, and that makes a step of faith very difficult. Well, about a week later, we get a phone call from the Swedish guy again, and he says, hey, we made a decision. We want you to be our pastor. And I said, woohoo, great. Well, that was such a huge relief to us because we had taken this step of faith and found ourselves discouraged. But this was like a much needed booster shot. Maybe you find yourself, though, in the midst of that step of faith right now. Looking back on our situation, our frustration was from not knowing and things not happening on our schedule.
You ever been there before? Yeah? Well, guess what? There's a second part to this story, so stick around. It's gonna be worth it. We've been learning a little bit more about our friend Brian Trent and his family. Now, they live up in Hampton, South Carolina, and he pastors Lighthouse Church. They're all over the socials. They go under the handle Trent Tribe there if you want to check them out for yourself. But we're learning a little more about how he ended up there in South Carolina. See, they were living in Virginia. They felt that God had called them to put their house up on the market. They weren't quite sure why, but they went ahead and did it in faith, and they were looking for some kind of position. They put in at different churches, and turns out there was a church in South Carolina that reached out and said, hey, we want you to come spend some time with us. We want you to do a sermon here. We want to get to meet you, get to know you, and then we'll make our decision whether we want you to come be our pastor or not. So here it is, 6 months after they've put everything up, they've put their house up on the market, and their life is about to really change. They've got somebody looking at their house, making an offer, and they don't know where they're going next. That's where we pick up part 2 of Brian Trent's story. Take a listen to this.
When we take a step of faith, we do just that. We give up our right to say what it looks like when it happens, or what the people will look like that God uses to make that happen. When we take a step of faith, we're stepping off of our comfort and our security and stepping onto the hand of God. We're placing who we are, what we have, our schedules, our resources, everything that we are into the hand of God. See, doing it halfway is not faith at all either. I wanted to put one foot in God's hand and the other foot in my comfort. But faith was screaming at my wife and I to throw all of our feet into the hands of God. Faith calls us out of the boat and into the water, right? So what you're walking on doesn't make sense. But God never is going to make sense in the moment. It will afterwards, but it hardly will ever make sense in the moment because God's ways are higher than our ways. And what God is doing in your life is bigger than anything that you can imagine in your mind. And even though we take a step of faith, that doesn't mean that the journey will be without battles. Because prior to us packing up the U-Haul and moving to South Carolina, we couldn't find a house to rent. And we wanted to rent because we wanted to kind of live here for a few months and get to know the area better before buying a house. And after a lot of prayer, a realtor finally come to us and said he had someone trying to sell a house that couldn't sell it because of the market, and they were willing to rent it to us for 6 months. Well, now that prayer was answered. So now we pack the U-Haul, drive down to South Carolina, but on our way down, our personal vehicle that my wife was driving started having issues. So she called me and said, let's take the next exit because we got to find a place to pull over. Something's wrong. And I said, okay, let's do that. And so we find ourselves pulling off the interstate in a town called Yadkinville, North Carolina. And I said to her on the phone, just drive until you see something. And so she did, and we drove a mile off that exit, ended up pulling into an Advance Auto when the vehicle died in the parking lot. It ended up being the alternator. And the guys at Advance felt so bad for us that they stopped what they were doing and come outside and helped change the alternator out right there in the parking lot. An hour later, we were back on the road, and 3 hours later, we were parked in front of our new rental home. Well, after getting a word from God, think about this. We put our house up for sale. 6 months go by, nothing happens. 6 months of applying for positions and interviews and callbacks, and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, it all happens at one time. And looking back, we can easily see God's hand all over the entire situation, but at the time, it was extremely difficult to see that and very hard to trust God in the process. See, whatever step of faith you're about to take right now, or the one you find yourself in the middle of, know that it might not be easy, and there will be issues and broken cars along the way, but in the end, God is moving you. God is positioning you into more than just a new place. God is positioning you into a new season. You cannot experience the fruits of a new season while living in the old season. You can't experience the fruits of a new season while having one foot into it and one foot back. You see, that step of faith is a spiritual relocation that is moving you out of the old and into a position to receive the fruit of the new season. So, trust God with it. Love you guys.
I love what he shares over on the socials. If you want to find him, you can find him over on TikTok. Just type in Trent Tribe. They've got 385,700 followers, 11.2 million likes. They have partnered up with the YouVersion Bible app, and they've made devotionals, and it's just amazing to see what all God is doing in Brian's life. And you can see him, his wife, his whole family right there on their socials at Trent Tribe. Pretty cool, huh? I hope that encouraged you. It encouraged me. Hey, I'd like to play a song now for Mr. Richard Udy. He called me up and said, could you play Zach Williams and Chainbreaker? I said, yes, sir, I can. If you've been hanging out around here for a while, you know when I hear from one Udy, I hear from usually 3 Udys, and that stands true today. So that one was for Richard. This one is for Jimmy. It's Cochran and Company, and thank God for Sunday morning. And I've got one more coming up for Liz. So I love when they make it a family affair. I really do. Thank you all so much for listening. It means a lot. Now, a little Graves into Gardens for Miss Liz Udy this morning. You know, I really enjoy watching their little one grow up over on the socials. She's so stinking cute. As we're in this brand new year, I hope that we're really taking a long, hard look at 2023 and seeing what we did right, what we can improve on, and how we can move forward bigger and better than ever. That's where a lot of people get those, New Year's resolutions from. Yet sometimes we make such big, lofty goals and we try to change things so quickly and abruptly that we burn ourselves out and we go back to the old way. Well, I want to talk about something when it comes to parenting. And I know we're all learning as we go, and it's real easy to feel the guilt, that parenting guilt come up, the way that you handled the situation inappropriately. Maybe you screamed at your kid. Maybe you feel like you really messed them up. Oh my goodness. There's nothing like that, right? So you learn from that, you make better choices, you move on. You learn how to handle that differently next time, right? But really when it comes down to it, 20 years from now, what's going to be the biggest takeaway that your kid has gotten from you? I want to talk to you specifically, Dad. Okay? Steve, this guy knows what he's talking about, and I think you're going to agree, and this might challenge the way that you parent your kids in the near future. See what you think about this.
When your kids are talking to their kids about you, they're not going to tell them about how expensive the toy was that they got or how lavish the vacation they went on. They're going to tell them about how you made them feel. Dad was warm. Dad was loving. Dad was so energetic. He was always playing with us, running around outside. He was always extremely present when he was with us. Or Dad was cold. He was always tired, frustrated, snapped at us. He spent most of his life with us on the couch. What's at stake today is how you're remembered 20 years from now.
And I know sometimes it's hard because you're trying to provide for your family and you are tired and you are give out and maybe burned out from the job. But when you come home, I hope that maybe you'll take a look at your kid and do something a little differently. Spend a little extra time with them and make them feel special, because that's what is really going to last. How you treated them and how you parented them. And hey, I'm in the middle of this thing myself. I've got a 9-year-old and I'm in the same exact boat, and I'm trying to make better choices. I'm trying to spend more time with my kid so that 20 years from now, she can tell her kids about how cool hanging out with dad was. We're just trying to do the best we can. And hey, I'm so glad we can do it together. We can draw a little strength from one another, right? Here's Ann Wilson with a song called Strong. When people like something, they tell other people about it, right? Have you noticed this Stanley Cup craze as of late? Yeah, this thing, it's a 40-ounce mug, right? It's supposed to keep things cold for a while, and we know it does. Remember the story I shared with you? I think it was it last week? Of the lady whose car burned up, but her Stanley Cup was in the middle and it still had ice in it even after the car fire. Yeah, Stanley reached out and bought her a new vehicle. Why? Well, because they can. You know how much they're worth right now? That 40-ounce cup has helped turn Stanley into a $750 million a year business. I saw a video of kids opening up their Christmas presents, completely overjoyed to get a Stanley Cup. I don't understand the craze around it myself, but I just know these things happen. When I was a kid, the biggest thing was yo-yos, and so I got a yo-yo. In fact, here's a little tidbit for you. If you search my name on Google, you put in Steven Spiegel, you're going to find a guy who specializes in yo-yos. It is not me, but back when I was in school, oh yeah, I could do some tricks. Plus, after that, well, the hacky sack came around. Oh, it was so much fun. I still have one at the house. I was pretty good at that. But now the Stanley Cup reigns supreme. I don't know. Do you have one? Yeah? A little expensive, right? But I don't know. It's become like a status symbol. It's weird. But anyway, to each their own. But Stanley, they're not complaining. $750 million a year business. It's a pretty big deal. Why do you share that, Stephen? Well, first, because it's kind of funny. And second, because there's a little application we can apply right here to our lives. How do you make people feel? Do you put a smile on their face? Are they happy to see you? Or do they kind of wince a little bit when you come around? Do you feel all the air escape the room when you walk into it? Or do people light up? It's hard to do this, but it takes a little moral inventory and a little thinking to see, hey, how do people really take me? What do they really think about me? All the while understanding that you can't be everything to everybody all at once. You're not going to please everybody. Believe me, I know. There's some people who just totally don't get me at all. Hard to realize that. Hard to think about that. Anyway, but not everybody is going to absolutely love you. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But to the people who you are their cup of tea, how do you make them feel? And how can you rub off on them in a good way? Think about that. Because, hey, there's one thing I've learned. This life is all about relationships. So, be that good friend. Be that person who lights up the room when you walk into it. It can be a little work, but hey, it's worth it. Now, you want to hear some more music? How about this song right here, Patrick Mayberry? Lead on, Good Shepherd, right here on the Lifeline Morning Show. I think I need some water. But I have no Stanley Cup. I might have to change that. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here this morning. You know, we talked earlier about Dick Van Dyke at 98 years old, still goes to work every day, goes to the gym 3 times a week. He still sings with his group, and he loves life. 98 years old. Well, I'm getting ready to tell you about another guy who is on up there in years as well. He's 92 years old, and he just broke a world record for doing something that people his age ain't supposed to be able to do. But the reason why is going to melt your heart. So stick around and find out what he did, what's his name, and more about this story right after Caleb and John with Hallelujah Feeling. Do you have any bucket list items as far as places you'd like to visit before you go to be with Jesus? You know, for me, I'd love to go out west. I've never actually been to the Grand Canyon before. I'd love to see it in person. I hear the thing is huge. I'd love to go up and see Old Faithful in Yellowstone National Park. I've always been mesmerized by the whole idea of that water shooting up into the sky. There's just something about, I want to see that in person. Oh, and I'd love to travel all the way to Egypt and see the pyramids that I read about in history books. I'd love to go to Israel and actually check out the place where Jesus lived. You know, there are a lot of places I'd like to go see, and one of these days, maybe I'll make my way to go do those things. But, you know, for somebody who's 92 years old, he's had a lot of life to live. And let me tell you, Alfredo lived it, and he loved spending time with his wife. Well, you see, his wife passed away from ALS in 2006. And so, to honor her, Alfredo has been revisiting some of the significant places they'd traveled together. And he hiked the Grand Canyon with his daughter and grandson. And he's done that not just once, not just twice, but now, well, let's just say that he's broken some records. In October, well, he decided to go and try it out by himself, hiking the Grand Canyon from rim to rim. And he did it, and his hiking time was less than 24 hours. He did it in 21 hours and 15 minutes, got his start at 6 o'clock in the morning before the sun was even up. And it was tough. He kept taking a few breaks. Yeah. So, he got his official chance to try this in October. He started at 6. The early wake-up time was worth it. He stopped at the overlook to watch the sunrise over the canyon. After that, he accomplished the journey, making sure to take a break almost every hour. The first 5 hours were absolutely grueling, but after refueling and hydrating during a 15-minute break, he recovered and felt strong enough to take on the next 7 hours. Mind over matter, right? Now, he says, I think of the next step and the next, and not how far I still have to go. Then it's not so overwhelming and very doable. And now Guinness World Records has said he is the oldest living person to have ever done this. And so congratulations to you, Alfredo. You have honored your wife, and you have achieved something that many of us would never think was possible. You rock. And so I think maybe this is a great opportunity to use this story to encourage you. Those of you who are on up in years, you've had a lot of life to live, and you've lived it. Well, guess what? You've got a lot of life left to live. So go live it. Wouldn't it be cool if we all actually became what we said we wanted to be when we were kids? The world would be full of ninjas and kings and queens and mermaids and train drivers, astronauts, dragon slayers. I would have been, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Yep, I loved planes. Oh, I still do. Plus, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I didn't get either one of those, but I got to be able to hang out here with you, and I call that a win. Seriously. So I wonder, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you come close? Yeah? Do those things that you wanted to do they still kind of hold a special place in your heart? Well, who knows? Maybe that's something that could be in your future, or something that you could really enjoy learning more about. Hey, all I'm saying is, the world is your oyster. If you want to learn more about that thing, you can. There's the University of YouTube, and there are other people who've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and have some stories to tell. So why don't you reach out to somebody? I bet they'd be glad to talk with you about their experiences. Yeah. I'm thinking about this thing. It's happening up in Huntsville. I think it's happening in May. They're bringing some planes. And I got to do this once while I was working at Channel 48 in Huntsville. But they're bringing this B-29 bomber. It's got the front cone, the front nose is clear, see-through. And you can actually crawl up in there and look at the ground as you're flying over. And they've got this big hole in the ceiling of it. You can actually stand up and stick your head out of the plane while you're up in the air. It was absolutely amazing. I love stuff like that. Little part I didn't tell you was, back when I did that at Channel 48, we were expecting Grace. My wife didn't know I was going up in a plane. Let's just say she was mad at me because she didn't want anything to happen to me. We were about to have that baby. So enjoy those things responsibly. Maybe tell your wife what you're up to. Just a few minutes ago, I was talking a little bit about how the world would be a much cooler place if we all became what we wanted to be when we were kids, right? And I told you that I really loved airplanes. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That's what I wanted to do. I had toys. I had one that made the sounds that a fighter jet would make. It was so much fun. And of course, you have to make the sound when you're going over. Anyway, I actually picked up a toy at the thrift store yesterday and kind of did a little bit of that. Yeah, I felt like a big kid, but that's okay. But I told you that I've liked planes ever since I was a kid. So a few years ago, I guess now it's been, over 9 years, when I worked at Channel 48 in Huntsville. They brought this like big B-29 bomber to Huntsville, and they sent us out to go shoot some video of it, and I got to go. But my wife knew I was at work, but she didn't know I was going to go up in a plane, and she was very, very aggravated at me when she found out that I went up there without letting her know, and that I would be so reckless when we were expecting a child. She's pregnant, ready to have Grace here in the next couple months. I understand. I probably should have told her. And, we need to tell our wives what we're up to. I came across a little song that sums it up completely. It kind of is reminiscent of Christmas, though we're just through that season. Still, it's hilarious. Guys, take a listen to this and take it to heart.
You better watch out. You better not die. You better not crash. I'm telling you why. 'Cause you told your wife you weren't at work.
That guy was on a mountain bike going down a crazy trail. That's right. You gotta make sure your wife knows what you're up to. I'm just saying. Well, hey, it's been a blast hanging out with you this morning. I hope that I can hang out with you again tomorrow from 6 to 10. But before I let you go, one final thought. Today's inspiring quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." It's all about perspective, isn't it? That thing that you want so badly, it's worth it, even if you got to overcome some stuff to get there. And hey, that is life, isn't it? So keep up the good work. Keep striving. You're going to get there. Be persistent. And hey, keep God at the center of it. Sound good? All right. I'll see you right back here tomorrow from 6 to 10 for another Lifeline morning show. But until then, just remember that I take these talking segments and I put them up as a podcast over on Spotify. Yeah, so you can go over there and check it out. If you missed something, you can go and see. Maybe you can find it. Or if you're like, hey, you talked about something this morning I'd like to share with somebody, well, go do that. It's over on Spotify. Type in Lifeline Morning Show, and you can find it right there this morning at 10:15. All right? All right. Well, tell you what, coming up here, of course, we're going to have some amazing people hanging out with you, doing life together. And how are you liking it? Are you liking the shows we have here on the radio now? We've got somebody on the mic almost 24 hours a day. There's like a couple hours where there's nobody. It's just music. But we've made a lot of changes, and there are a lot of changes yet to come to make us even better in the future. So I just wanted to let you know we're always trying to improve. And if you have any suggestions as to how we can get better, I'd love to hear from you. It's Stephen at 885jfm.com. Stephen with a V at 885jfm.com. All right. I'll see you right back here tomorrow from 6 to 10. Have a great day.